The 2025-26 OHL season is now in full swing, so let's dive right into it. It's our weekly power rankings here on the channel. Last week was a small sample size with most teams playing 2 games. A few also played just one. But despite that, we have some movement to discuss. So let's get right into it, starting off with team number 20. And it's the Sarnia Sting. No change from last week, and it has not been a great start for Sarnia. 0-2 last week was their record, and that included an 8-1 loss to the Windsor Spitfires in their home opener. It was ugly, and that's now 7 losses in a row if you include the preseason. Because remember, they were one of the teams that were winless during the preseason, and I said last week that you could take it with a grain of salt. This is a Sarnia Sting team with some creative players up front. But man, oh man, it's been hard to come by right now. Although one bright spot, Jack Van Volsen, who they picked up from the Brampton Steelheads, he had goals in back-to-back games. So for the Sarnia Sting, with the talent they have, I expect them to improve. But from what I'm seeing on social media, some Sarnia Sting fans ready to hit that panic button. We'll have to wait and see what happens next. Now this week, they're home to the Sudbury Wolves on Friday, and then they host the Flint Firebirds on Sunday. At 19, it's the Erie Otters. No change for them either. They also started the regular season with an 0-2 record. Brett Hammond, though, he stood out in the opening game. He scored 2 goals in the 5-2 loss to the Guelph Storm, but that included a shorthanded goal. So you got to find some positives here to start the regular season. And Hammond, a bright spot. Also, Noah Erliden, despite losing both games, looked pretty sharp at times for the Erie Otters. This weekend, though, the schedule doesn't get any easier. They're going to be in Kitchener on Friday night, and then they're home to the London Knights on Saturday. At 18, it's the Oshawa Generals. They're down 1 position this week, and for the Generals, the regular season started with a pair of losses. Although they had the lead for a good portion of the game last night against the Kingston Frontenacs, things just fell apart in the third period. But goaltending, a question mark for Oshawa after Andrei Bondrev decided to leave the team. We don't have the specifics at this time, but with Jacob Oster moving on from last year, the goaltending was going to be an area of focus. Who would take over that starting job? There's, of course, Isaac Gravel, who was the backup last year. And then they picked up, just before the season started, Jaden Cholette from the London Knights. He actually started in the game against Kingston, but still 0-2 is their record. And this week, they're going to be in Guelph on Friday night before hosting the Windsor Spitfires on Sunday. At 17, the Peterborough Petes, they are up 1 position. It was actually a pretty exciting start for the Petes. They opened the regular season Thursday at home. They had a 6-3 win over Brampton before losing on the road 5-1 to the Brantford Bulldogs. Now, this team already looking better than what we saw last year, so it's great to see them picking up that victory, but we'll have to wait and see what happens next. Although Matthew Soto, what a pickup he is from the Kingston Frontenacs. 4 points in that home opener, so not too shabby. This week, they will be home to the Sioux Greyhounds Thursday night before visiting the Brampton Steelheads on Saturday. At 16, I have the Guelph Storm. They dropped 1 position this week. The Storm, they looked all right in their home opener against the Erie Otters. They earned a 5-2 win in that hockey game, but they struggled mightily against the Barrie Colts on Saturday. Just 1 shot through the first period, and they looked frustrated. But Jaco Wysick, though, if you haven't seen his goal from Saturday night in Barrie, look up the highlight. It was a beautiful goal, putting in the effort. I think Guelph Storm fans excited about the potential of Wysick in his development over these next few seasons. Now, coming up this week for Guelph, they're home to Oshawa on Friday, and then Saturday they travel to Saginaw to face the Spirit. At 15, I have the Niagara Ice Dogs. They fell 1 position. It wasn't a great game on the road in Brampton, but then they made up for it in a big 5-1 victory on home ice against the Sudbury Wolves. Ryerson Edgar, a hat trick and an assist, so a 4-point game in that home opener. This has the potential to be a very exciting season in St. Catharines. I don't expect Niagara to be this low in the power rankings for much longer. Once they get that offense going, Riley Patterson's back from the Vancouver Canucks. I feel as though the Niagara Ice Dogs, they're going to climb steadily as the season goes on. But right now, I have them in the bottom half. I just didn't like that loss against the Brampton Steelheads. Now, coming up this week, it's a road trip into Michigan. They're going to be in Saginaw Friday night and then Flint on Saturday. At 14, I have the 67s. They're up 2 positions this week. They only played one game, but it was a pretty significant win. It was a 6-2 victory on the road against the Kingston Frontenacs, who they were undefeated in the preseason, so they had some excitement going into that opening game. But the Ottawa 67s, they found a way to quiet the crowd at the Slush Puppy place, and they didn't look back. So a good start here. We'll see if this will build some momentum for Ottawa going into this weekend. They have two games. They're going to be in North Bay on Friday before home to the Sioux Greyhounds on Sunday. At 13, I have the Sudbury Wolves. They're down 3 positions this week. Sudbury, they fell short in their season opener as they were unable to hold a lead in the third period against North Bay. They ended up losing in overtime in that one, although Owen Leonard, he looked pretty good in making 28 saves in that hockey game. So there are some pluses here for Sudbury if you take away what happened in Niagara on Sunday where they lost 5-1. So we'll have to wait and see how things come together for Sudbury. I think there are some areas that are looking pretty bright, and we'll wait and see what this team can do when they start getting players back in their lineup. Now, coming up this week, they're on the road for 3-3. It starts Thursday in Windsor, Friday they're in Sarnia, and then Saturday they're in Brantford. So playing both the Spitfires and the Bulldogs on the road this weekend, that's not a great recipe for success. So we'll see how the Sudbury Wolves are able to dig deep with this road trip coming up. 12, the Flint Firebirds. I have them up one position. Now, the Firebirds found themselves in a wild game Saturday in Saginaw. They were down 4-1 just 6.5 minutes into the hockey game, and they found a way to battle back and eventually won this one in overtime. Chase Hull, he was the overtime hero for Flint. I don't know if Paul Flash, the head coach of the Firebirds, will want to see more games like this, but I'm sure he's happy to see that his team had a no-quit attitude despite being down by 3 goals early in the first period. So we'll have to wait and see what happens next year for the Flint Firebirds. They're going to have their home opener Saturday against the Niagara Ice Dogs, and then Sunday they visit the Sarnia Sting. At 11, the Saginaw Spirit, no change from last week. Scoring, I don't think is going to be a problem this year for the Saginaw Spirit. 10 goals in 2 games is just something else. And 3 of those goals, Damian Zhilkin, who was red hot in the preseason, that has continued here into the regular season. But it's keeping the pucks out of the net. That is showing to be a concern here for Saginaw. They couldn't hold an early 4-1 lead against Flint, which has to be a bit of a concern, but they're going to go over the game tape, I'm sure, and figure out systems and how to, improve defensively. But this weekend, 2 home games, Friday against Niagara, and then Saturday they're home to Guelph. At 10, I have the North Bay Battalion. They're up 2 positions this week. The Troops, 2-0 to start the regular season, wins over Oshawa and Sudbury. And the one over the Wolves, of course, had to come in overtime. Ryder Cali, the overtime hero there. I really like Cali's game, what he adds to this forward group. And it may be early, but North Bay, I think, is going to surprise some people over the course of this season. And we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. But I really do like the look of this North Bay team early on. This weekend, they're home to the Ottawa 67s on Friday before they host the Kingston Frontenacs on Sunday. At 9, I have the Sioux Greyhounds. No change from last week. It was kind of a mixed bag for the Greyhounds going 1-1. They lost 5-3 to Saginaw and then won 5-2 over Sarnia. So Chase Reed is going to be a player to keep an eye on this season. He's already projected to maybe be top 10 in the 2026 NHL entry draft. He had a solid game in the win against Sarnia, and I think keep an eye on Reed with the Greyhounds this year. Coming up, they are on the road for 3 games. It starts Thursday in Peterborough. Then Friday, they're going to be in Kingston before wrapping up the road trip in Ottawa on Sunday. At number 8, I have the Brampton Steelheads. They fell 3 positions this week. It was a rough start in Peterborough on Thursday to open the regular season. They lost 6-3 in that hockey game, but then bounced back with a 4-1 win over Niagara. So you got to, it's a mixed bag, but this Brampton team, no one's really giving them much of a chance, but this team, they've got some players here that like to dig deep. And you look at Julian Demiglio, he had a really good preseason and continued that here for the first 2 games of the regular season, scoring goals in back-to-back games. And that also included a shorthanded goal against Niagara. So no pressure really on the Steelheads this season, considering a lot of people picking them to miss the playoffs. And they just want to prove everyone wrong. And Demiglio and Sherrod are those 2 players up front that are going to try and lead the charge. Now, this weekend, They will be in London on Friday before hosting Peterborough on Saturday. At 7, I have the Barrie Colts. They're up one position this week, and they only played one game, but it was a dominant win over the Guelph Storm. The defense was able to shut things down, allowing just 3 shots in the first half of the hockey game. And Joe Salandra, 2 goals in his first OHL game, so not too shabby there. I know the question mark for Barrie coming into the season was where would the goals come from? Well, considering they were missing the likes of Cole Baudouin and Kayshawn Aitchison at NHL camp, Joe Salandra and some of these young players stepping up. And I think this could be an exciting year here for the Barrie Colts. We'll have to wait and see. But it's a busy week ahead. Thursday, they're home to Owen Sound. Saturday, they're home to Windsor. And then Sunday, they will be at the Bayshore in Owen Sound. At number 6, the Owen Sound Attack. They're up one position this week. The Attack, they're able to do something they haven't done in 20 games, and that's earn a win against the London Knights. They needed overtime to get the job done, and that's thanks to Jacob Tarian, who they acquired from the North Bay Battalion. So a lot of excitement with the Owen Sound Attack getting that win on the road. We'll see if they can continue that momentum going into this week, because Thursday they're in Barrie, Saturday they're home to Kitchener for their home opener, and then on Sunday they're home to the Barrie Colts. At number 5, I have the Kingston Frontenacs. They fell 2 positions this week, and they were undefeated in the preseason, but the Fronts ended up falling 6-2 to Ottawa to open the regular season. Although they had an impressive comeback win against Oshawa yesterday. That was on the road against the Generals, and they also got Tyler Hopkins back from the Toronto Maple Leafs camp. So the lineup getting a bit of a boost there from Hopkins, and we'll see how this goes for the Frontenacs. Friday, they will be home to the Sioux Greyhounds, and then they're on the road Sunday to face the North Bay Battalion. At number 4, it's the London Knights, and they dropped 3 positions this week. It's really different seeing London lose the first 2 games of the regular season, and that first loss at home, it came in overtime against Owen Sound before losing 4-1 on the road against the Windsor Spitfires, one of their biggest rivals. This is still a good Knights team. They will still be getting up the wins, expect them to make the playoffs, challenge for the top half of the standings. Although it was good to see that Dale Hunter, the head coach, and a few of the Knight players were okay after the glass shattered behind the bench. It just looked like the fans were celebrating a little too hard, and the glass shattered and was all over Dale Hunter. But like I said, everyone was okay, so that's good news there. This weekend, just 2 games for the Knights. Friday, they're home to the Brampton Steelheads, and then Saturday, they travel to Erie to face the Otters. At number 3, I have the Windsor Spitfires. They're up one position this week, and it's been a dominant start to the regular season for Windsor. 8-1 on the road in Sarnia, and then 4-1 win at home against London. I almost put them number 1 in the power ranking this week, but I do expect this team, they will get there sooner rather than later. Just this team is so good up front. Cole Davis, he was a scoring machine, a hat trick against the Sarnia Sting, and then added another goal against London. So 4 goals already for Cole Davis. What a start for him. It's a busy week ahead for Windsor. Thursday, they're home to Sudbury. Saturday, they visit the Barrie Colts, and then on Sunday, they visit the Oshawa Generals. At number 2, I have the Kitchener Rangers. They are up 4 positions, one of the biggest climbers this week. And when I put the power rankings together last week, I kind of felt Kitchener may have been a little too low. And wouldn't you know it, they go 2-0 to start the season. Although I was a little surprised how the game started against Brantford. They were outplayed for the most part. They allowed 17 shots to their 3. But UCO Hocus got this team to settle down, and they battled back and ended up winning in overtime with a winner from Tanner Lamb. So Kitchener, they seem to be the real deal. It's just maybe caught flat-footed against Brantford. Both teams in that hockey game were missing key players from their lineup, but still, what a game that was between those two, who many pick could face off against each other in the OHL Championship. But time will tell. But yeah, still, what a game. The Rangers, they're home to the Erie Otters on Friday, and then they're going to be in Owen Sound on Saturday. So that leaves us with number 1 on the power rankings. It is the Brantford Bulldogs. They are up 1 position. Yes, the Bulldogs lost in overtime to the Kitchener Rangers to open the regular season, but this team, they look lethal, and they don't have everyone back in the lineup just yet. In the past, this team has struggled at the start of seasons, but Jay McKee seems to have this team buying in early and heading in the right direction. So I'm comfortable putting them at number 1 for now. They just have 1 game ahead. It's going to be against the Sudbury Wolves on Saturday, but we'll see how that game goes. And we'll see if they can hold on to top spot in the power rankings, because Kitchener and Windsor, both really good teams behind them. So it seems as though those might be the top three teams this year, fighting over top spot in the power rankings. And right now, it's the Bulldogs who are enjoying their time on top. So let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on the power rankings. What was your biggest surprise from last season? And what do you expect going forward into week 2 of the OHL regular season? I appreciate all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Talk to you again soon.